The honourable member for Cape Breton-Richmond.
Mr. Speaker, when a loved one reaches the end of their life, we all want them to be treated with dignity, care and compassion. Our dedicated healthcare professionals want that as well. Danny Latimer, a terminally ill Richmond County man, stayed on a stretcher for 2 days inside a busy emergency room at the Straight Richmond Hospital, where there are no protected beds for palliative care. I'm going to table both an article in the Cape Breton Post and a letter sent by Danny's wife, Linda, to the Premier regarding their experience. And I'd like to quote, "Here is my 66-year-old husband, God bless his soul, that we can no longer take care of him at home." And she goes on to say, "Don't just talk the talk, walk the talk, and deliver." My question is, does the Minister of Health believe it is acceptable or even possible for appropriate palliative care to be delivered on a stretcher in a busy emergency room?
The Honourable Premier.
Speaker, thank you. I want to thank the honourable member for raising this important question in the House. End-of-life care, Mr. Speaker, is an important aspect of delivering health care across our province. It is unacceptable at any time, Mr. Speaker, that someone at the end of their life is left in a stretcher in any of our hospitals across the province. In fact, we're working with communities to provide a myriad of options that families have asked for, whether it's hospice care. We know in some of our communities we're working with some of our, whether it's health foundations, the auxiliaries, to ensure that we have palliative care facilities in our communities. And we're also hearing from communities who want to care for their loved one at home. Mr. Speaker, we're trying to provide those options, but it's a question that was brought before the House. Mr. Speaker, that family had come to the point where it required the assistance of our system, Mr. Speaker, and it's unacceptable that anyone at the end of their life is in on a stretcher in a hallway in our hospitals.
The honourable member for Cape Breton-Richmond.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to hear that the Honourable Premier thinks that it's actually unacceptable to end their life on a stretcher, and perhaps we then can get something done about this situation. The stress and anguish of living with a terminal illness is devastating to families. It is unimaginable that some Nova Scotians must spend their last hours on a stretcher, as has happened on the Easter weekend, amid the chaos of an emergency room. That is not the palliative care that Nova Scotians deserve or expect from this government, and it's not the palliative care that constituents in Cape Breton-Richmond deserve, Mr. Speaker. Will the Honourable Premier apologize to Danny Latimer and his wife Linda for the ordeal they suffered last weekend and commit to providing dedicated palliative care beds and needed resources to the Straight Richmond Hospital?
The Honourable Premier.
Sure, again, I want to thank the honourable member for the question. I want to reiterate what I said at the beginning, Mr. Speaker, it's unacceptable for any Nova Scotian to spend the end of their life, Mr. Speaker, in a hallway in a stretcher. The reality of it is, Mr. Speaker, we've had a very fractured healthcare system where palliative care was one of those, Mr. Speaker, that is very different depending on where you are in our province. It was looked at very differently. We believe that in a holistic way of looking at our healthcare system across the province, we're going to continue to work with our partners, Mr. Speaker, to make sure, Mr. Speaker, those that are looking for end-of-life care get a number of options to provide, which is the best way for them and their loved ones, Mr. Speaker, to be able to deal with the end-of-life situation they have. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, ensuring that when they come into our healthcare system, they're treated with the dignity they deserve.